Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third 3Doshas Community Session. Today, we're going to be talking about how to find your greater purpose through the three greater elements. So I'll pass it on to my dad.
Hey, good morning, everybody. So we're here today to talk about the greater purpose, but I also wanted to highlight today's Halloween, or is today Halloween? Yeah, I think the
Tomorrow.
point is tomorrow. Sorry. Happy Halloween to everybody who's thinking about a Halloween. So thank you for joining. Let me go straight into the content today. So I just want to quickly highlight to everybody what we talked about in the past, which was around the TriDoshas concepts. So let me quickly go through rehash, but we're going to focus today specifically around what it takes to have a higher purpose. And today I do want to focus a little bit more on the elements. So please pay attention as much as you can to try to understand how these elements are going to take shape into finding greater purpose. Okay. And I hear some background noise. If you can go on mute, that would be great. So again, 5 basic elements according to Ayurveda, according to 3Doshas, are space, air, fire, water, and earth. Today, specifically, we're going to focus a lot more on space and air. Space and air are going to be very important to try to find the purpose in our life. Fire obviously is needed, but I'll go deeper into this in a few minutes. So just to recap, everything is made out of the 5 elements. The 5 elements are then broken down into 3 greater elements, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, when it comes to our body. And that is the basis of what causes us to kind of go through the balances and imbalances in the TriDoshas theory. So if you remember, we talked about how each one of the 5 elements broken down into 3 elements play a major role in our biological states or our biological energies. So the Vata, Pitta, Kapha make up the fire, air, and water, or air, fire, and water, just to keep it simple, right? And it's important we understand how to keep all of these things in our body in balance. And then we talked about how we have the same 3 doshas, or what are called mana doshas, that we also have to keep in balance. And these govern our psychological states. So space, if you notice today, is around Satva. Space is kind of in its own. Now, space is a very subtle element. Most people don't think of space necessarily, but we'll talk about this deeper today, why space is so important. We can all see and feel air, fire, water, earth in front of us, but space is very nebulous, very subtle, but very important in understanding and going deeper into our higher purpose. But anyways, the 5 elements are here. Keep in mind, there's Satva, Rajas, and Tamas. These are what determine our psychological states or our psychological energies, or what's in our mind, if you will, just simply. Okay, so I also wanted to take a little bit of time. Somebody asked me the question, hey, what is this 3 doshas all about? And what is this name all about? I think most people know this, but if you don't, let me try and explain a little bit what 3 doshas are. So 3 obviously means 3, right? The actual word is 3Dosha, D-O-S-H-A. Now, dosha as a word in itself, some people think is what's at fault or what's my fault. Actually, that's not the right way to think about the word dosha. The word dosha literally means that which is at fault, not an individual, but that which is at fault, meaning that which is bound to get unbalanced. So it is in the nature of the dosha to get unbalanced. It is not because of something we've done or you've done or I've done. It's just something that is bound to get unbalanced. So our objective always ought to be that we should be understanding the 3 elements of the body, 3 elements of the mind, the 3 greater elements. And the balancing of these 3 greater energies is naturally bound to get unbalanced. So think of it like this. Think of it like you're always on a 3-legged stool, and one of the legs is going to get unbalanced. And it's our job to keep it balanced all the time. And that is the basis of how we came about the name 3 doshas, 3 things that are bound to get unbalanced. And as long as we're balancing these 3 greater energies, we call it the basics of living. That's essentially the essence of Ayurveda. That is essentially what basics of living is all about in the concepts of Ayurveda. So hopefully that helps. So let me go a little bit deeper, just to recap. last time or the previous videos, we talked about what are the 3Doshas balance. The 3Doshas balance are what you took into your account at time of birth. So we all were born into a balanced state, whatever that was, and we call that the 3Doshas balanced state. And during our lifetime, whether it's nature or nurture, meaning however we absorb the nature around us, and however we were nurtured, we are bound to get unbalanced from this orange star into these other states. And anytime we go into these other states, we're bound to get unbalanced, okay? And our objective ought to be to understand how we're getting unbalanced and bring it back into balance. By that, we mean in the body, we should be thinking about air elements, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, the air, fire, and water elements. In our mind, we should be thinking about sattvic thoughts, rajasic thoughts, or tamasic thoughts, and essentially what effect it has on us and how that gets us out of balance, okay? So hopefully that's helping as we're thinking about these concepts. And 3Doshas basics to living in balance, if you remember, is, hey, we have 3 greater elements of the body, 3 greater elements of the mind, right? The objective ought to be to keep our body and mind in balance. And if we can keep the body in balance first, then the mind in balance, and combine the two together, and you have the body, mind, and the spirit in balance. And that is essentially all about 3Doshas. So today we're going to talk about what is purpose and how do we find our purpose. So Sachin, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah. So thanks, Dad. What do you guys think purpose is? Does anyone want to share? Because I know there's passion, there's also purpose. But do you guys know what purpose is? Like, what's your purpose or what's your why? You guys know what, if someone asks you, do you know what they're trying to ask? If anyone wants to share, they can share.
No, what's your, Sachin, what's your question?
My question is, what do you think purpose is? Like a purpose in life, what do you think that is?
Or how does one find their purpose, if you will?
Yeah.
It's a very challenging question that you're asking.
Yeah.
About the purpose of life. If I were to define my purpose of life now, I would just like to serve others, serving humanity. If I can if I can give, I would say, happiness to humanity, I think I'm doing my job. I'm doing my service, given my profession apart, given my life apart. In simple words, I would like to answer you, the purpose of my life is just one word: service.
That's great.
That was, yeah. Thank you. I want to share a little bit. So I think that your purpose is based on emotions. So your passion is something that like excites you and lights a fire of the emotions inside you. But your purpose is like the driving reason behind your emotions that you have. And like passion is about your emotions, but purpose is the reason behind your emotions. So they're both connected. But if we go to the next slide, we can see here's, so the red in the inside is purpose. And pretty much all these circles are what it's inside. So you love it, you are great at it, you are paid for it, the world needs it. And then deeper inside, it's your passion, your mission, your profession, and your vocation. And then right in the middle is your purpose. And you can use the 3 greater elements to find your purpose. Because if you think about it, when you find a passion, if you think about it, you can have your thoughts, first of all, like you can think about what you already like and start pursuing that. And then to take the action is to have your Pitta. So the thoughts are the Vata, and then again, the Pitta is the action of actually doing the things that you enjoy to find your greater purpose. And then you can reflect on it and you can ground yourself through your Kapha. So does anyone want to share some of their passions or some of their hobbies?
When you talk of passion, I put passion equal to fire. Unless there is fire inside me, I don't think I can do any selfless service, because since I'm talking of service, I'm sticking to it. Service can be done only when no expectation, one. Number two, there is a passion in your heart And number three, it's just motivating you like fire. You know, it's burning in you all the time. You are thinking, let me do something to serve others.
And I do agree, your passion is what, like, you can't just with purpose, you can't really your purpose is like the big picture, like everything on top. But you have to have the passion to really like have the desires and the fire inside of you to do things. So I totally agree with that. And then it's cool that we have the red right on the sides. I just realized that that can be like the fire. Um, Dad, you can go to the next slide.
Okay, excellent. I love some of the conversations. Sachin, you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I can talk about this quickly. I actually did this a year ago. I did a TED talk about how to find your passion or your purpose. This is when I think I sounded really different back then. And I don't know, I think it's a decent talk, but I think I could have done a better job. But yeah, pretty much what I did is I talked about how I found my passion at a young age, which is which was selling things. And I still do that today. And then also bringing value and pretty much doing things like this is what I really enjoy doing. So yeah, you guys can also check this out. I can send it to you guys. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, if you watch the videos, Sachin talks about helping others and all the concepts you're talking about. His whole passion was, if I've learned some knowledge, how can I transpire that knowledge into everybody? And how that can lead you to a sense of purpose that's needed. So please watch that if you can. But let me move into some of the other concepts so you understand how the TriDoshas theory plays into effect of finding your higher purpose. So I'm going to take a little bit of time here, and feel free to stop me if something's not making sense. Okay, so let's start with the three greater elements, right? So let's just simplify it: air, fire, and water. And I've given a color code: white, red, and blue. And again, air in the body is Vata, in the mind is Satva. It brings us all the awareness. Fire in the body is Pitta, in the mind is Rajas, and it's all about action. Water or earth, whatever you want to call it, is Kapha in the body, Tamas in the mind, and it focuses on inertia, attachments, and bonding. So let's take a look at each one of these and how they play into finding your greater purpose. So awareness and ideas, remember we talked about this in our previous videos, all come from the air element. And there are good air elements and bad air elements. If you want to understand more of it, please watch some of our previous videos. But air brings us all the intellect, all the ideas, the intellectual honesty of what we're doing. We're also very self-aware in this air element. We're not just looking at the environment around us and what is being fed into us, but we're actually growing from the inside in a very self-aware fashion. And you could argue a lot of our higher purpose really comes from air, right? But I'm going to go a little bit deeper in the next slide on it's not just air, it's actually air and space. And I'll bring that into the balance theory of TriDoshas. But let's also focus on fire. Like we were just talking about, fire is needed no matter what. The fact that we're alive, the fact that we're breathing, the fact that we have digestive fire is our Pitta, the fact that we have intellect and we have the ability to take anything that comes at us and dissect it into what is right, what is wrong, is fire. Your intellect is always active, your body's always active, so your fire's always in action, if you will. You have no choice but to go through it. And that is the karma theory. The moment you are born, you're bound to be in your karma. You're going to take some action, good or bad, doesn't matter. And that's going to be there. Now, the water or the earth element, whichever one you want to call it, this is what gets us into bonding and experiences, right? And we talked about in the previous video, you do get bound by anything you do. There was a lot of conversation in here. When you do something and you get attached to something, that is part of your tamas or your kapha elements. And there's nothing wrong with this. I've tried to articulate because that's our natural tendency to get bonded and attached. And experiences, deep experiences, especially the millennial age, if you will, talks about, I really want to go after experiences. I really want to internalize all the things that I do. And I think that in itself is a property that drives us into things. It's not necessarily all negative. It's just you have a deep experience in something that fuels back your fire and air in a way that you could still perform in an exceptional fashion towards your higher purpose, right? So hopefully that helps you understand attachment, grounding, inertia, and how this element also has some controlling elements that we'll talk about that go into play. So let me go a little bit deeper. And I talked about today, I want to bring space into play. We don't talk about space too much, and we don't talk about earth too much as one of the other 5 elements. But space is actually something that really brings Satva, or awareness, right? Think of it this way. When a person walks into a room, they create an energy in the room. We call that the space energy. Your entire presence, the idea of presence comes in, and that is space if you think about it, right? Some people call it the sacred space. And if you're really focusing on the space and how you are bringing that energy, you can see some of the people that have higher, greater purpose. The moment they walk into your life, or you even see them, some very, very influential people that you could say are really focused on greater purpose, they have a very good control on their space and air element, right? So air gives us a lot of ideas, but ideas is one thing. So, the space is also very important with it. So I put on the left here, and by the way, just like the last time, I drew a line in between. The orange line kind of says, if you really want to find your greater purpose, which side do you focus more on? Do you focus more on air and fire, or do you focus more on water? I would argue to get your greater purpose, you need to be in the upper left-hand corner, more into the air and fire elements. And here, what we're trying to explain is you got to have really good balance of your space, your sattvic elements, your air, your movement, your ideas, what's going through your head, and the fire element, right? We talked about passion. You've got to have passion to do something. So it's actually a combination of air, space, and fire that's in balance. And these qualities help us get to self-awareness. By self-awareness, I mean, not just looking at what social media is giving me, or the world is giving me, or the environment's giving me. It's about being very self-aware of what I want to do, and having that awareness in every action I take, every thought I put in my mind, of what it is I'm absorbing and what it is I'm doing, and constantly being self-aware in that, right? And a lot of thoughts here are very noble thoughts. These are not thoughts about, just my personal gain or my personal money. They're very noble thoughts. And somebody brought up, right, this is about serving humanity. I wrote down without expectations. And somebody said karma without attachments, right? Those are very profound words, because here we're talking about how you connect to a higher purpose. How are you going to help others? Are you helping or hindering humanity? Are you helping or hindering nature? And I think that's basically what you're looking for when you're trying to find your higher purpose, having a lot of balance around space, air, and fire elements. Now, we talked about intellect, that you have to have a super sharp intellect. Your intellect is the highest, sharpest amount of fire you've got, right? You've got digestive fire, which is in the body, but your mind has the ability to take any thought and say good or bad, or right or wrong. Is it helping or hindering? And I think you got to have this super sharp intellect as you're thinking about trying to find your greater purpose. I also put on here, if you ask yourself, is Sattva more important or Rajas more important? Which one is more important? Can you have one without the other, right? I mean, can you just always stay in sattvic thoughts, if you will, and just think about higher purpose thoughts? Well, you could think about higher purpose thoughts all the time, but it's not going to do anything for you until you mix the fire in it. So if you're not taking action and you're not rigorous about taking those actions and making something out of those thoughts towards higher purpose, towards helping humanity, helping nature, it's not going to make any impact, right? So ideas can be ideas all in your head. The intellect can keep looking through and saying, is it good or bad? But until you take the action and do something about it, nothing's actually going to happen. And your purpose can be all saying in your mind, but purpose has to go a little bit farther to say, okay, now that I've got purpose, how do I mix the fire element and take it into action? Okay. So hopefully that helps understand. Let me just finish this slide and we'll go into some Q&A if there are any questions. Then we talk about, on the bottom, we talk about the water or the earth element, right? And we talk about how we get attached, right? it's very important to understand to get to your greater purpose. I love some of the conversations before. I think we talked about service without expectations, karma without attachments. You got to be, you can't think about a donation, that's kind of talking about, hey, I did a donation, but it's advertising. But you can't talk about doing service, but say attached to that service in the form of how much am I going to make out of this? How much am I going to benefit out of this? So you have to be very unattached. You have to keep in mind your bonding elements or your water Tamas elements have to be less in this finding your greater purpose. When you're finding your greater purpose, you ought to not get attached. You have to figure out how to stay unattached. You got to think about contributions you're making, how you're nurturing, but you can go through the experience and understand the experience. So say, for example, you found a higher purpose in helping others in, let's just say, like gardening. You can't get so attached, in that experience that's also getting you into that in a wrong way. You ought to do the service, stay unattached, right? Not think about the financial gain and keep focusing on the greater purpose, right? So let me pause there and see if there are any questions. Hopefully that kind of helps.
Sumit, I have I don't think I have a question, but I would like to share with you. I think I still have to understand the greater purpose, number one. Number two, honestly speaking, I am not so clear till now. What is the purpose of all that you are doing, which you have been doing in the last couple of months or so? What is the ultimate purpose? I still have to understand, and maybe through a personal meeting. Now, coming back to body, mind, intellect, followed by knowledge. You see, to me, the biggest challenge is mind management. If one can manage one's mind, I would put it in a scientific manner, then the force behind has to be intellect. If intellect is the force, then you need knowledge. So these things, you see, a body is just at the bottom, I would put it. It's just at the bottom. But the main thing is, can we manage our mind? And if we can, what kind of knowledge you are using? And if you're using knowledge, then the question, I'm confused. To me, it seems what you are talking is very close to spiritual thoughts. I think the ultimate goal of any human being should be to connect through intellect knowledge with the God realization. I will the God realization. That is the ultimate purpose which I'm looking at. So I don't know whether I'm right or wrong. I'm confused myself, but I do see in what you are sharing, it's very close to spirituality. Thank you.
That is so well said. And Mr. Ahuja, you're spot on. So let me back up a little bit and explain what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is we're trying to simplify Vedantic sciences to the next generation that needs to understand it in a very basic fashion. That's why we called it basics of living. I think a lot of the younger generation detracts very quickly when you go into deep knowledge. And I think when we try and use a lot of the complicated words, what I've noticed is, it's not inspiring them in ways. So we're trying to simplify it in ways that they can understand. You're spot on. This is very, very, Vedic sciences, Vedic knowledge that has been around for thousands of years. That's what some of our previous videos talk about. Our objective is to just make this simple enough to make it part of people's living, and a concept that is so simple and so vast and profound that it becomes part of their living, right? Essentially, that's what we're trying to do. And everything you said is so spot on, which is your intellect and the knowledge and what you do with it is what kind of moves you towards the greater purpose.
To intervene, Sumit, when you talk of, when I said serving humanity, now the question is, action program is the most difficult, number one.
Right.
I'm asking you a question now. Given the knowledge, what is the source of intellect? Is it in my hand? I don't think intellect is in my hand. So what is the source of intellect? Unless I have intellect, I cannot interface with knowledge. So that's my confusion. And that's something which I would like to learn from you. What is the source of our intellect?
Yeah, that is such a great question. I will try to take an attempt at it, but I'd love to hear your comments as well. I would argue the source of intellect is what we're born with. Each one of us has the concept of Brahman and has the concept of we all have the concept of intellect. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be a person with very little resources, but you have the higher intellect to know at a human level what is right, what is wrong. Now you could argue we made a lot of choices that are on the wrong side but made it right, or vice versa. But I think at a basic human level, how humanity is connected with each other, doesn't matter what race you come from, doesn't matter what class you come from, how much education you have. Intellect is that fire that is in you that you're going to have no matter what, just like that digestive fire is going to be in you no matter what, because the moment you have taken birth, you've taken the form of doing karma, and karma is both the body and the mind. That's my interpretation of it, how I've absorbed it, but I'd love to hear other comments if people think of it any differently.
I think a lot of the
Can
intellect. Oh, sorry.
we develop intellect?
Can you develop intellect? I think you have the capacity to have intellect for sure. The question is, are you tapping into it? You know, we could feed our body a lot of junk food and kill our body at the end of the day. You could kill your intellect because you're not really exercising it, right? So if you're just consuming content and not really putting intellect into it, you're not really tapping into it. Just like if you're just putting junk food in your body and you're not taking care of your body, to me, it's these two things are the fire in us that's always there. The question is, how are you tapping into it? So hopefully that helps. Actually, I want to hear from some of the other people if there are any concepts in here that are not making sense from the 3Doshas concepts, the way we've laid it. You know, and if any of this is, any of this is making sense, or if any of this is still kind of very, very complex, if you will. These are honestly very complex topics, but I'm trying to really simplify it. So this is at the very basic level, and then we can get into the deeper levels.
So yeah, so for me, I would actually like to know how to get this, how to get the awareness, or how to get into that state. So that is what I'm looking forward to, like how to attain all those balances and eventually the main balance. So
I love that, Karan. Thank you for bringing that one up. That is such an awesome question. So how do you get to that, tap into that awareness state? I would argue you need to keep your air and space in balance. And how do you keep your air and space in balance? Space, if you think about, is complete silence or complete noise level, if you will, however you want to call it. So to get into your awareness, I would argue, or your higher purpose, you ought to be able to be very comfortable with being in complete silence, right? It's really during the spacey space or space of silence that you're going to get the clarity of what you want. If I'm constantly watching TV or watching YouTube and I'm trying to get ideas, but I haven't had that stillness, that calmness, that reflection time, I'm not sure I'm able to really get the self-awareness coming from the inside versus the environment giving it to me to get to that higher purpose, right? And that is essentially sattvic thought, right? If you think about it, you're thinking about it when you're in your quiet stillness time. Imagine those times, Karan, when you've been in great places like the outdoor spaces. You went for a walk in the woods, and that stillness gave you clarity in that stressful time of saying, you know what, I'm stressed, but I really have clarity right now of what I really want to do moving forward. So if you really want to tap into it, tap into the times of space. And if you think about when you're in those environments, you're also taking in very good air element, right? You're breathing with a lot of awesome air along with it. And meditation, if you think about it, keeps both the space and the air elements together. And trying to perfect that would get you towards understanding how to get to awareness and a greater purpose. I don't know if that's making sense, Karan. If you have questions, feel free to ask. But I think those are two things you ought to do in your day. At some point, stillness, calmness, have the space and the air elements in balance.
Yep, that actually answers my question exactly. So thank you.
See, Sumit, you hit the nail on the right point. I was talking about meditation. That is what it is called, meditation. You see, in a narrow definition. What is meditation? Meditation is when you detach yourself from the external elements or external thoughts, and you concentrate deep into inside, into your mind, into God, or whatever you call it, whatever you believe in. Just think about one time going into by the side of a river, sit on a stone or a rock, and then close your eyes and listen to the noise or sound of the running river. Just concentrate on that only and leave everything else in your mind. You are in space. To me, that is the definition what Sumit is telling you. That is the Satva awareness, means that you are looking at the reality of life, which God, you are attached to God or your internal feeling or your internal, whatever you call power, you believe in. So that is what it is. Thank you, Sumit.
Yeah. No, thank you. The great explanation of that. That is essentially exactly what meditation is. Now, I know some of us young ones, I mean, I'm the first one, right? I'm not a big meditator. And I know it's really hard for some of us young ones that are trying to conquer the world.
But your father is great on meditation.
No, I know, and I so is my mom, and I think it's fantastic. But I do want to highlight to somebody at a younger age that meditation doesn't necessarily have to be, and I know some people may disagree with me. Meditation to me is about being in that sattvic state where you can actually tap into the greater Brahman, or the greater world environment, everything around you, and you can actually attain that in that stillness, in that calmness, just by being around places where you can tap into it very quickly. You could get it in the woods, you could get it at the ocean, like my dad said, just watching the river, watching the nature around us. To me, that's also a very meditative state, right? So some of us that aren't necessarily sitting in a cross-legged position with breathing can still tap into it and feel like, hey, I actually meditated today, even though it was 5 minutes and 10 minutes. Now, I'm not saying that it's okay to get away with that. If you really want to tap into this, even to a higher level, please spend the time to meditate. Please spend the time to have that stillness. Spend the time to keep your space and air elements in balance. But understand, it's also something you can tap into it instantly in other ways, shapes, and forms.
Can I say something, Sumit?
Yeah, please.
You see, meditation is a great tool to work in one direction. It doesn't have to be just godly or higher self. If you have a goal and you are meditating, that means you have more power to just concentrate on one aspect of your life. You will be able to divert all your power into that one aspect which you are working on in your everyday life also. You can work on your goal, you can work on your studies, you can work on anything on that. That is a power of meditation also. It's not only God. You can meditate and concentrate on one aspect only. You will not be working on other things. You will be unidirectional. That's all. Thank you.
I love that. I love that. And actually, that's a very good point. And I wanted to highlight, one of the elements of action ought to be, right, if what you just mentioned, right, you can do multiple actions at the same time in your intellect, right? And if the intellect is sitting here, the intellect ought to have intensity and focus, right? Without intensity and focus towards that one thing that you need to do is also going to deviate you from that meditation, if you think, or that intensity or focus that's needed, which is exactly why I said to find this greater purpose, you have to have balance of space, air, and fire, right?
Yes.
Imagine if you're meditating and you have your air and space elements together, but your actions are also kind of everywhere, right? Your intellect is also thinking everywhere. You're not going to be able to focus with that intensity that's needed to find that greater purpose. So Karan, I love your question, right? Which is, how do you tap into it? You got to be able to tap into it by keeping these three basic elements, or the three greater elements, along with the basic elements that we talked about, in balance. Hopefully that's making sense. And if it isn't, I'm happy to make more content and try and explain it in even more simpler terms if possible.
Nope, it is making sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think your passions are like what really puts the fire inside of you and what you do.
Exactly.
And then the purpose is like the greater reason behind why you're even doing the things you want to do. But I want to go back to meditation. I found the actual definition and I wanted to make a few comments and see if you guys agree or disagree with mine. So it says meditation is a practice where an individual uses a technique such as mindfulness or focusing the mind on a particular object, thought, or activity to train attention and awareness and achieve a mentally clear and emotionally calm and stable state. Meditation is practiced in numerous religious traditions. So because it says mentally clear and emotionally calm and stable state, do you guys think that you can meditate without having, I think that you can meditate without having to be anywhere or be in front of everything. I think you can technically meditate by doing by sketching, which I enjoy doing, or actually doing action. Because if you're doing those things, if you're in a mentally clear and emotionally calm and stable state, then that's technically still considered meditation. I think a lot of people think to meditate, you have to be like in a shrine room and do a specific amount of things. Do you guys agree or disagree that you can meditate by doing things that just keep you calm and that don't make you think about other things? Or do you think that if you have to meditate, you have to have an object in front of you or do specific things?
I love that question, Sachin. Thank you for bringing that one up, because I actually missed a point. So thank you for bringing that question. Hopefully others can answer this. I love that, thank you for bringing that, because you said, while I'm sketching, I'm in a meditative state. Now pay attention though, when you're doing that action, you're actually in action, in that action. You're not even feeling like it's real work, right? Is that true or not?
Well, yeah, typically, if you really love something, when you do it, it doesn't feel like work. So
there you go. Spot on. That's what I wanted to bring up. And thank you for bringing that up. So when you're in a higher purpose or your greater purpose, we all talk about, oh, I hate my job. I'm so stressed. It's so much work. I'm tired, right? When you're doing something in greater purpose and you're in that meditative state, the work that you do no longer feels like work, actually. So you're in that action, but the action does not stop you. It doesn't tire you. It doesn't, it's like you're in it, but you're not in it, if you think about it, right? And that in itself can take you. So if you're asking Sachin, can I be meditating while I'm doing action? You can't be meditating if you're watching YouTube and trying to sketch at the same time. But if you're doing an action and you can see that you're doing it and you're an autopilot. So think of it like this. It's like there's a fire inside of you that's autopilot. We all wonder, well, what keeps us going all the time, right? There is a fire inside of us that keeps us going all the time. In that action, the fire element is that action on all the time and keeping you going without distracting you, without keeping you out of your air and space element. So that action cannot take you out of your, if you have balance of air, space, and fire together with that action, it may be okay, but don't let that, don't mess with your mind too much, because the air and the space can also get distracted.
But what
Does
if
that make sense?
someone, yeah, but what if someone argues that like when they're even watching YouTube or doing something that they can train attention and awareness and achieve a mentally clear and emotionally calm and stable state, then technically is that meditation? Because some people could say like, I
Yeah.
don't see like I have this Ganesha right here, right next to my
Mhm.
desk, right? So I can meditate and close my eyes and just be calm and do that meditation. Or I can also sketch while watching a YouTube video. Like here, I'll plug my Michael Jackson
Yeah.
drawing that I did recently. That was really fun, and I felt like that was a meditative state. Um, what would you say? Like, do you guys think that meditation has to be like if you do something that someone thinks that can't be meditation, but you're in a like calm state, does that still count as meditation? That's my question.
I'd love to hear other people, but Sachin, I do want to make one point, and I love this question from you because I think your generation obviously thinks that you can multitask and still be meditative, right? You can watch YouTube, you can listen to music, do homework all at the same time. But I will argue that the more elements you're putting into yourself, the more distracted you're becoming and the more unbalanced you ought to be in those other elements, right? So I would argue, if you're trying to do too many things, can you really have a meditative state? I think you've already stretched it, in my opinion, by putting action into it, because the argument of TriDoshas theory would say your meditation really comes up here with mostly air and space, and action takes you into a different direction. But if you can do something where you're where you're doing the action, but in an action, and you still have this imbalance, you may have it together, but now you're stretching it by saying YouTube into it, from my perspective. But I'd love to hear other people's comments.
No, I agree with you, Sumit. Yet once you are in meditative state, then you are concentrating only on one thing and there is no action in it. You are just simply into it. You have to go really deep into the definition of meditative state. Meditative stage is when you are not thinking of any actions. You are just, it's an idea. It's a thinking which you are trying to pursue, not for any selfish purpose or for attaining anything, but just for attaining the higher level of consciousness. That's all.
Yeah. No, thank you for saying that. Spot on. That's why meditation comes all such in up here, in actually mostly space, not even in air.
Exactly.
Right? You got to keep space in. So now I thought you were talking about greater purpose. If you're doing greater purpose things, what I was trying to articulate is your actions become very much aligned with the air and space. But meditation, such and I would argue exactly what Dadaji said has to be in the space element. Pretty much no action, and even air has to be balanced in that state.
Sachin, you cannot confuse meditation with your day-to-day life.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for the young ones, and I want to be clear.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to explain. We are. I mean, there are two different, stages of life. We are talking about the ultimate, goal of seeing God or getting His powers or do something so that our next Dharma is good. But your people's young generation's purpose is to achieve something good in life, so that you can have a good life together. So we are talking about two different things. Yes, you are right also, Sachin, that when you are doing this, you have to do a lot of things at a time in your day-to-day life and all that stuff. You should keep doing that. But at some stage or at some time in your day, you should try to empty your mind. That, okay, I'll just concentrate on my education only. Let us say that, okay, did I achieve whatever I wanted? Am I going in the right direction? So that is called as a drishta bhav, that, okay, you see yourself, get out of your body and see what you are doing. Mm-hmm. That is another type of a analysis of yours, that I am, as a student, am I doing good? As a son, am I doing good to my parents? As a neighbor, am I a good neighbor? Analyze yourself, getting away from yourself. That is the Drishtha. So these are, very higher stages of, thinkings. And yes, you're right, that when you are in a stage like you have to be working, you have to be in actions and a lot of stuff. Don't confuse with meditation right now.
So when you're meditating, you're pretty much isn't it like impossible though to like not think about anything 100%?
I
Because
love
if you're
it.
not doing any action and not like, how do you just like sit there? Because even if like you're like doing something and you feel something after like,
Sachina, that is space. That is what space is.
Hey, Karan, I wanted to check with you if any of this made sense, or if any of this you think can apply to, the generation that we're trying to go after in the concepts that we're doing.
Yep, it does make sense. Like even I believe that doing one thing at a time is the right thing to do. Although like it's hard, it's very hard because in your day-to-day life, in my work, I cannot focus on one thing. And going back to the purpose, I really love the chart. Actually, I wanted to ask actually if you could share the chart, because I don't think I know the purpose of life for me myself. So I was trying to make sense of it and like how it fits in my life. So that was something really interesting. I don't know the purpose.
are you talking about the previous slide with the like the red on the sides?
Yeah.
Yeah, that you can go back to that if you want.
Sure.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like
I can share that.
So yeah, that would actually, I would like to be in a silent mode and just look at this. That would actually probably be the space I want to be in.
Awesome.
Yeah. Hey, on this one, I wanted to say one thing though, Karan. And I loved this slide when Sachin brought it together. And I think it sometimes gets people a little bit confused. And I think the portion at the bottom, you are paid for it, right? And I think that's the one that I looked at and I said, in your greater purpose, are you really focusing on getting paid for it, right? And I know that younger generation would say, well, if you're not getting paid for it and it's not passionate, I ain't going to do it. And what I do want to highlight is, something that started at the beginning of the conversation. Yes, you're paid for it, but you're not paid for it with attachment, right? It's that self-service, or it's that service without attachment. So you got to understand that, the main motivation here shouldn't be, hey, if I find my greater purpose, and I know younger people always think about, I don't want to do my job. I want to just focus on what I'm passionate about. I want to quit my job and do this passionate thing, and I'm going to get paid for it somehow. And I know that's usually the thought process in young ages that comes instantly. And what I'm trying to say is when you're focusing on your greater purpose and, you love it, you're great at it. Yes, your natural ability moves you towards in that direction. The world needs it as the humanity element, meaning, you're not hindering anything in nature. You're actually, really doing things more for humanity. When you think of you're getting paid for it, think of it in an unattached fashion. Don't think of it as, hey, if I'm passionate about something, I got to get paid $250,000 or else I ain't doing it, right? Because that's how young people will think instantly. And yes, you should get paid for it and it'll happen in its own ways, but, think in a different way on that realm. So I love the chart because I know Sachin really put a lot of thought into it in terms of the profession you can go after or the vocation, but keep that in balance, because if you don't, what happens is the moment you start your passionate things, you try it out and you make $10 the first day and you're like, oh, that was a bad idea. Let me just stay back to my job, right?
Yeah. I would just want to put that out there that I actually I didn't make this, but I found it online just so you guys know. But also I wanted to quickly go back to Mr. Ahuja's thing about intellect, because I wanted to ask something about that. So were you asking how do you get intellect, or was that your question about that?
I think he signed out. He had another meeting at 10 o'clock.
Oh, no, I think he's still here. I think Mr. Ahuja is still here. I see him on my screen.
I don't see him. Is there?
Mr. Ahuja, are you still here?
Yes, probably.
He may be on his other call.
No, I'm here. You have a question for me?
Yeah, you were asking, how do you gain intellect, right? Was that your question that you were asking earlier?
No, what I said was, I will come back again on meditation to sharpening my own intellect plus knowledge. So what I've shared today is fine, but I still think there is some wider scope to talk about meditation, and it won't be possible for me today, but whenever we meet again, either like this or in person, I would certainly like to share with you and Meet and Vijay something more about meditation.
I love that. So, Mr. Ahuja, we'll spend some time with you. I'll have Sachin set it up. We'll spend some time, and I'd love to hear what you have to say and hopefully distill it in a fashion that we could create something out of it.
Yes, good.
I'm learning a lot today, and I want to learn more.
Well, we'd love to learn as much as we can from you also, and figure out how to take that knowledge and distill it. So,
yeah, this was amazing. A lot of discussion. It was really fun.
Yes.
Any other questions from anybody else on what we talked about today?
So
okay. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
I have no knowledge about the subject, but I can tell you I'm still learning a lot. So I enjoyed the talk thoroughly. You cannot see me because my video is not working. But Sachin and Sumit, both of you, thank you very much. I know Vijay is already in a great state, but the others, Mr. Ahuja and Karan, wonderful things said. And probably somewhere I will know my purpose. I'm still looking for it. I don't know my passion. My only passion that I can think myself is being happy. If I can be happy myself, or if I can make somebody else happy in any given amount of time, I think I have achieved my purpose. To me, all things are seriousness and the serious nature of everything. But if I'm happy, fantastic. If I can make somebody happy, fantastic. That's what I believe in. Thank you for a great talk.
That's really good. But I wanna highlight something he said though, which is very profound. Which is when you're happy and you're making someone else happy, it's the essence of what that feeling is. And if you focus on that time horizon when you actually are making an impact to somebody else's life, feeling happy and making someone else happy, you will literally notice you actually at that point have your fire, air, and fire in balance.
Yes.
Try to see if you can focus on that and see how that actually takes effect. Because that little capsule of time is the essence of what we're talking about.
Good. I will do that. Thank you.
We have somebody around, and I find that person makes others happy quite frequently, and the person in front of us, Rekha Naik.
Thank you. No, I was going to say this something. Thank you so much, Sachin and Sumit. This is first time I'm hearing you, and I didn't have any question because I was trying to absorb so much, and I really enjoyed it. And meditation, I enjoyed it so much because I'm good at meditation. I can concentrate. I stay away all my thoughts and that happens after you do it for a long time. And I've been doing it 7-8 years. And I really enjoyed that topic. And yes, next time when you have this topic, I would love to attend. And any of your subjects, I would love to attend. Thank you, Dadaji, for inviting me. And Sachin, right? You had TED Talk. I am so impressed. You really talk so well.
Thank you.
And I would love to hear your TED Talk, and I will do that. And
awesome.
Thank you both. And I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I was late. I woke up late, and then that's it. But I was able to attend. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you so much.
I'm learning so much. And
yeah, dang, it's like 20 minutes overtime. I love it.
Yeah, you're right. 20 minutes overtime. You're right.
It was an amazing discussion.
It's a great discussion. No, we love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.